I never had heard of any of those other names that you focused on. Frank McWhorter, William Leesdorf, Mary Allen Pleasant. What were their contributions?
Well, Frank was a carpenter, and his enslavement would allow him to keep some of the money that they charged others to build their homes, what have you. Frank earned enough to buy not just his freedom, but the freedom of his wife and kids and 18 other people. Bought enough land to incorporate his own town in the state of Illinois. It's called New Philadelphia, and he became the mayor, understandably. Mary Ellen Pleasant, let's actually say she is the first Black millionaire woman. Who?
William Leesdorf.
William Leesdorf, yeah, correct. William Leesdorf was out of the New Orleans area. His dad was a white enslaver. Let's say he had relations with the Black woman. William is born. The mother dies. The dad takes William in, treats him a little bit better than others, enslaved children, but nonetheless still didn't have all the benefits. William is a smart guy, is considered the founder of San Francisco as we know it today. And so it's an amazing story. He's a very successful business person.
Hi, I'm Janice Hazel, host of Urban Interest, and today we'll dig into the Highland Park water crisis, a Nigerian learning the brutal history of slavery in the United States, Black maternal mortality rates, and an exclusive with author and filmmaker Anthony Brogdan. Stay tuned, don't go anywhere. We'll be back after these messages.
Thanks, Charles, for letting me use your gardening supplies. I'll make sure I put it back in the garage. Man, tending to that lawn is a lot of work.
Tell you the truth, Jim, I'm more concerned about keeping this house.
What's going on?
Well, you know, Sarah lost her job 2 months ago, right?
Yeah.
Since we lost that income, the bills have been piling up, and we're so far behind. I don't want to lose the house because of back taxes. I don't know what to do.
I understand. The same thing happened to my sister and her husband when he lost his job. Do you know that the Wayne County Treasurer has plans and programs to help people stay in their homes?
No, I didn't. Tell me about it.
Yeah, go to www.treasure.waynecounty.com to see if you qualify.
What's that site again?
www.treasure.waynecounty.com.
Got it.
Question. Do you know of John Henrik Clark or Dr. Francis Cress Welsing? Have you ever heard of Mansa Musa? Or do you know the difference between Native Americans and First Americans? Or why the ancient Egyptians wore their hair in dreadlocks or clean shaven like the brothers do today? Or who were the Barbary pirates really? Hint, they didn't look like Johnny Depp. Or why Haiti has the lowest COVID rate and America the highest in the world. At UIN TV, we have the answer to these questions and much, much more because we are the keepers of our culture. Help us preserve this information and save it for your generations to come. Go to uintv.net, click on a channel to support, and subscribe today. Please do it now.
70% of the earth is covered with water, but only 2.5% of that water can be used.
On average, every household uses 350 gallons of water per day.
The demand for fresh water is increasing by 64 billion cubic meters a year.
Annually, the average household uses 127,400 gallons of water per year. 782,250 billions of liters of water have been consumed this year alone, and this number continues to grow. help the environment, conserve water.
2012, the city of Highland Park stopped paying the Great Lakes Water Authority for water and sewer services, which caused rate increases in other communities to cover the debt. Dozens of communities in Metro Detroit saw their rates rise due to the Highland Park not paying its bills. Local officials say Highland Park owes $21 million to the Great Lakes Water Authority for unpaid water and sewer bills because it only brings in half that amount annually in property tax revenue. The Michigan Supreme Court rejected the city's appeal of a 2022 ruling and stated they must pay the unpaid water, sewer bills, interest, and fees.
In speaking to a resident here at Highland Park, there is real concern over the possibility the city will file for bankruptcy. A former city employee, she told me she fears her retirement pension will be impacted, her only source of income, which has her worried that she can lose her home if the cost of the debt is put on residents.
It's not right and it's not fair.
Jamil Edwards believes residents are collateral damage in a battle between the Great Lakes Water Authority and Highland Park over millions in water bill debt.
Because I live off of my retirement that will be affected if you go into Chapter 9. And then you're going to ask me to pay 3 times the amount of taxes. How could I afford it?
Edwards is referring to the potential residents could foot the bill for the city's debt. And now that city council is taking steps to file for bankruptcy, she's growing more worried about what it means for her and other people.
This isn't the first time that the city has went into financial hardships. And I lost the first time they did. You took money from me, but I never stopped paying my bill.
We didn't create this headache, okay? The state created this headache.
Highland Park City Councilman Khursheed Ashafi wanted to set the record straight over how the city got to this point. He blames previous state-appointed emergency managers for raising rates and putting the city in a hole too deep to get out of.
Let me make it clear. We're paying water amounts as if we're the city of Detroit. Detroit actually pays less for water than we do, and they're 3 times the size of us.
He says he reluctantly voted for a bankruptcy because he says the city has few options left to resolve the problem. But he's also reiterating the city's call for Governor Gretchen Whitmer to step in and help.
We haven't asked her one time for any help of any kind, but now we need her help, and we need her to come to the aid of the residents of Highland Park.
Shafi and Edwards believe the governor's decision could determine the fate of Highland Park, and for Edwards, the deciding factor on whether she stays in her home.
The city of Highland Park has $4 million in its rainy day fund and has floated the idea of bankruptcy, bringing their plight to Governor Whitmer. We will stay on top of this story to keep you updated. Turning now to a Nigerian that just found out about the horrors of enslavement in the United States. Apparently, the erasure of Black American history is a global problem. Watch this young Nigerian react to learning African American history for the first time.
So we have one of our Nigerian sisters that live here in America that talked about when she went to school here that she actually learned about the history, of Black Americans. I want you to hear what her take was.
Yo, somebody help me understand this. As a young Nigerian girl moving to America, history was always the one class that I hated with a passion. And that was because that was the first time I actually learned about the African American history. I learned about enslavement. So imagine me, a Black girl, learning this information about potential people from my country that were put through this. And this was the first time that I'm hearing about this. Culture shock, one. But I was filled with so much rage. I was filled with so much rage. Like, I couldn't understand it. And these people, I still can't understand the white rage. Because how are y'all for 400 years and then some, to this day, quite honestly, let's be quite honest. To this day, y'all enslaved Black folks, y'all killed them, y'all took them away from their family. At the end of the day, black folks came to y'all and said, all we want is peace. All they wanted was peace, and y'all was mad, and y'all couldn't even give them that just off jump, and y'all incited violence and killed them some more after they wanted peace. Imagine somebody killing your family members for 400 years over and over and over and over and over and over again. And at the end of the day, all you wanted was peace. And they still chose violence.
Dozens of states across the United States are moving to restrict teaching Black history. Even the College Board is backpedaling on its plans for an African American Studies course. Anti-Blackness in the United States is nothing new. The country was founded on anti-Blackness. The bright spot is that young people are protesting the elimination and sanitizing of the horrors of slavery, inequality, and social and economic injustices suffered by Blacks in the United States, and requesting the truth and nothing but the truth in their curriculum. Revolutions begin with young people. We are keeping hope alive. Turning now to the high maternal mortality rate for Black women. The pregnancy-related death rate among Black American women is much higher than that of other racial groups. In 2021, it was 69.9 deaths per 100,000, which is 2.6 times higher than the rate for white women. Simply stated, Black maternal mortality is the death of Black American women during or after child delivery. Let's delve into why.
Some mothers wait a lifetime to hear that sound. But government data shows expectant Black mothers are at a much higher risk of not seeing their child grow up. According to the CDC, a third of the women who died from pregnancy-related complications in 2020 were Black. That rate is 3 times higher than white counterparts. The CDC lists several factors that contribute to these disproportionate birth outcomes for mothers. They range from variation in quality health care to underlying chronic conditions and structural racism and implicit bias. We traveled to Northwestern Medicine Hospital outside of Chicago, where we met with maternal fetal medicine specialist Dr. Latasha Nelson. She told us the complications and disparities trace back centuries.
If you could boil this down to an essence, why are Black mothers dying at a disproportionate rate from pregnancy-related issues?
When we look at maternal mortality in Black women, we have to take into account the historical perspective of how Black women have been treated, especially in the field of obstetrics and gynecology. But then you have to weigh in the implicit bias that is perceived by a population of physicians that really don't look like their patients sometimes.
Researchers at the Medicare and Medicaid Research Review say these issues date back to the late 1700s. At the time, the U.S. Census classified Black people as 3/5 of a person. In the 1800s, the man credited as the father of modern gynecology, James Marion Sims, experimented on enslaved Black women and denied them therapeutic treatment. Back at Northwestern Medicine, Dr. Nelson says uprooting this neglect begins with approaching each case individually.
We all come to a situation with our own biases, and we have to own that. And I think that when we begin to own that, we can address that. We look at the care that they got from the time they came into the hospital. Were they greeted at the front desks the same as any person? When they came through the emergency department, were they triaged the same way?
She brought us into the emergency room, a place where Dr. Nelson says pregnant Black women are frequently misdiagnosed.
Black women are 3 to 4 times more likely to die from complications surrounding pregnancy and childbirth than white women. Death rates for infants born to Black Americans with advanced degrees are higher than white Americans who didn't go to high school. Racial justice in healthcare, education, and economics is the cure. Now, don't go anywhere. We have an exclusive with author and filmmaker Anthony Brogdan after these messages.
70% of the Earth is covered with water, but only 2.5% of that water can be used.
On average, every household uses 350 gallons of water per day.
The demand for fresh water is increasing by 64 billion cubic meters a year.
Annually, the average household uses 127,400 gallons of water per year. 782,250 billions of liters of water have been consumed this year alone, and this number continues to grow. Help the environment, conserve water.
I'm Wayne County Treasurer Eric Sabri. We are living through unprecedented times with a global pandemic now approaching its third year. As a result, the Michigan Homeowner Assistance Fund was created. This fund, administered by the state of Michigan, is designed to help homeowners cope with pandemic-related hardships, such as delinquent property taxes. To see if you qualify, please visit. Call 313-388-9799 or email taxinfo@waynecounty.com. We're here to help.
These my dollars make it hurt.
Joining me now is our guest, Anthony Brogdan, founder of Strong Productions, LLC. He is a movie maker and an author, focusing on telling the stories of Black Americans. Welcome, Anthony, and thanks for joining us today.
Yes, thank you for having me. I appreciate you having me on your show.
Absolutely. Well, let's get right into it. How did you get into storytelling?
I've always liked writing. The misnomer is I went to college to be an accountant. That career didn't last long. The urge of writing something took over. And so many years ago, I wrote a stage play from a dream that just kept gnawing at me, titled Foot Soldiers. And that was the beginning of the career.
So you started out as a bean counter,
right.
crunching numbers,
right.
but the creative pool grabbed you. Now, I remember you in high school. Anthony was an upperclassman, so, you know, he didn't know who I was, but I knew who he was. And I was in the performing arts curriculum, but I never intended to be in front of the camera. I was always producing. Did you ever take any performing arts classes at Cass Tech?
No, I didn't. Again, it was all business courses at the time. My only real, and there's no real formal training that I've had on the job, error and mistakes and learning from those. But I will say that after college, I moved to Atlanta, and somehow I ended up working on the set of a stage play about Josephine Baker. Don't know how it happened. Heard about it, thought it was a way to make a few extra dollars, something of that sort. And that's really where it all began.
Well, that's a wonderful place to start with the fabulous Miss Josephine Baker.
Yes.
And then what was your first book, or was it a film that you first came out with?
Okay, we're going back to the early 90s. I wrote some business books. One titled 23 Principles to Being a Successful Entrepreneur. Just my thoughts, putting it down on paper, a book of poetry. Then I wrote a series of books on how to start a business in various states, and I probably did 3 or 4 states, Georgia, Michigan, New York. From there, I did merchandising. And that lasted about 13 years or so, and that was probably the high part of my career during my 30s and 40s. But then the writing just took over, and the Foot Soldiers hit the stage in 2009. Good reviews too, actually. I'm going to turn that into a movie. that play, and I've already written and started shooting that. Got out of the plays. Take you back to last Christmas at my church. I was asked to be on the performing arts team to help with the Christmas play. That led me to, and I agreed to do it. That brought the urge back. And so we are where we are now.
Now, there's a white supremacy movement across the United States to erase Black history and the accomplishments of Black Americans. Why are you focusing a number of your plays and books on Black history?
Well, there is that movement, but I think what's happening is being offset with a heightened sense of yearning for Black history, Black people in general. We're not going to let it die. And conscious others who have an appreciation of the craft and of the history won't let it die. And so I wrote a documentary that came out in 2017 titled Business in the Black. That's the DVD to the documentary, everyone, and it is streaming on Amazon. I toured that to over 40 cities across America on my own dime. Went as far as Seattle, Washington, San Diego to New York, throughout, various other states, Ohio's and Georgia's and so on and so forth. And the response was just tremendous. That led me to write a book about it. And that's the book there, Black Business Book. And so people are hungry for this understanding of our history. But my angle is to not talk about the degradation and the ills of it in particular, but let's highlight some of the successes of so many Black people who came before us. And so that's the position that I take.
Now, when you're traveling and you say people are hungry for it, is that Blacks and whites as well as other ethnicities?
I would say yes, it is. And we can see that when we see performances of various arts, from dance, plays, movies. It's not just Black people who attend those, and in many instances, depending on the venue, we are in the minority in those instances. In the instances of the museums and the support of them, so it's all people who have a sense of consciousness. I would say, who have a sense of understanding what really happened, and that helps make amends for that as we know those stories and dare to repeat them.
Absolutely. So let's talk a bit about your latest play, They Did It. I saw it last weekend. It was fabulous. Let's talk about how you did the casting for that, because there are local luminaries in this play.
Yes. Well, let's go back. Again, I was doing it at the church. That gave me the urge. And then I thought, what's a good way to actually help promote my book, the one I showed you, the Black Business Book. And so I wrote the play based upon that. It's about 12 wealthy African Americans who lived in the 1800s through the early 1900s. I selected a number of them just randomly because their stories are so unique. To your question of casting, some of it was just by word of mouth. Some of it was posting in various acting groups, so on and so forth. And then it's also, as the producer of the play, the big question is not as much as the talent of the actor, but the commitment to the project. Mm-hmm. Because, I mean, it's not something that they become wealthy and, working and turn my play at this point. So you got to get people who have a love for the craft and will be committed to attending the rehearsals and Zoom calls and things of that sort, and the performance at itself. And then you do your best, as I'm the director too, of getting the most out of their skill set.
Let's walk through some of the historical figures that you focus on in They Did It, because I never had heard of any of those other names. that you focused on? Frank McWhorter, William Leesdorf, Mary Allen Pleasant. What were their contributions?
Well, Frank McWhorter was born in 1777, enslaved. He was a carpenter. And a little known story in our history is that in many, not in many, but in some instances, the enslaver would allow their enslaved to keep some of the profits that they made for the work they did for others. They hired them out, in short. Not everybody was a farmer, picked cotton or tobacco or indigo or any of those products. So that was their way of earning enough money to take care of that enslaved, because there were, costs associated with enslaving somebody, not just a tax that the government implied, but, shelter, eating, clothing, so on and so forth. And so Frank was a carpenter, and his enslaver would allow him to keep some of the money that they charged others to build their homes, what have you. Frank earned enough to buy not just his freedom, but the freedom of his wife and kids and 18 other people. Then he got and moved away and started a business using those skill set. And he bought enough land to incorporate his own town in the state of Illinois. It's called New Philadelphia. And he became the mayor, understandably. Mary Ellen Pleasant, let's actually say she is the first Black millionaire woman. This is the mid-1800s. She grew up in the St. Croix area of Jamaica, got to New Orleans, was a great cook, and just a solid businesswoman. And as a result, she opened up many businesses as she had moved to California in the San Francisco area. And so it's an amazing story of her success. And then the other one I think you mentioned was who?
William Leesdorf.
William Leesdorf, yeah, correct. William Leesdorf was out of the New Orleans area. His dad was a white enslaver. Let's say he had relations with the Black woman. William is born. The mother dies. The dad takes William in, treats him a little bit better than others, enslaved children, but nonetheless still didn't have all the benefits. William is a smart guy, seeing all the business transactions that his father was conducting as he worked on shipping vessels, and then bought his own boat, became very successful. And then he moved to California, San Francisco. And when he did it, he was considered one of the first to move to that territory because it was under Mexican rule, and is considered the founder of San Francisco as we know it today. And so it's an amazing story. He's a very successful business person in San Francisco, owned a number of businesses. And it's just really inspiring to hear of those and so many others that we talk about in the book, but in the play that, as you said, most of us don't know of their story.
Absolutely. I mean, to hear that a Black man, formerly enslaved, helped to found San Francisco, that's nowhere in American history books. Nothing that I've seen at the kindergarten through 12th grade level, definitely not here in the Detroit public school systems, or in higher education, at the University of Michigan. It's just something that's unknown, and I applaud you for bringing these stories and many, many more to life. I encourage everyone to see it. When is the next performance?
The next performance is June 3rd at the Detroit Public Theater, which is 3963rd Avenue. It's maybe a 2-year-old venue. It's what they call a black box. Seats about 200 people. So you're right up on the audience. The actors are, the staging, and there are 2 shows. It's 2 p.m. and 7 p.m. June 3rd, Detroit Public Theater. Tickets are available on Eventbrite and reasonably priced. One of the little nuances that I'm asking people is to wear old clothes. Get into character. as you may best do, so that we can all feel the vibe of those that we just mentioned and another 9 other people with Booker T. Washington as the narrator. So it's June 3rd at Detroit Public Theater. Tickets are $30 in advance and available on Eventbrite.
And how do they search on Eventbrite? They Did It or by your
Yes.
name?
Yeah. Now they go by They Did It. They Did It DPT, which stands for Detroit Public Theater.
Okay, absolutely. That sounds fantastic. Well, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be back to talk a little bit more about your other documentaries. Stay tuned. Don't go anywhere.
Thank you.
For a history you won't forget and an experience you'll always remember, visit the Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History with engaging educational programs, lectures, entertainment, and enlightening exhibits. You'll gain valuable insight and be motivated to inform others. The Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History, located in the heart of Midtown Detroit. For more information or to schedule a tour, visit thewright.org.
So a number of photos from your play, They Did It, is available, snapshots on your Instagram I've seen and Facebook. Tell everyone how they can see a little bit more about your play on Instagram, Facebook,
Instagram.
YouTube.
Instagram is A Strong Dream. So is the Twitter account, A Strong Dream. The Facebook is the page They Did It. I post on there often so that people can see, like you said, pictures, the flyers available, comments about the play, pictures from the last performance, which was April 29th at the historic King Solomon Church. My website is businessintheblack.net, businessintheblack.net. Because no matter what type of company it is, large or small, you want to be in the black, meaning that you are profitable. In the red is not good. So the website is a take off of that.
Absolutely, that's fantastic. Now, I've seen a picture of your bookshelf, your bookcase at your home. Tell us a little bit about what books are there. What books inspire you?
I'm inspired by, the biggest book is the Bible, and that sits on the shelf, and I try to read that as often, not try to, but I read it often for inspiration. But there are books by a number of other people who have written in terms of business, different techniques that you should employ, marketing, social media, because I do a lot of that personally. I do have 2-3 other people who help, but in my waking up in the morning, I do my social media blast every day. And so I read books of that sort. I do a lot of YouTube watching. There are a lot of videos on YouTube about almost every topic. And I had said to you earlier that I directed or am the director of the play. It's my first directorial opportunity. And it was YouTube and some books that I read, but YouTube in particular that gave me some thoughts of how to take it from paper to the stage. So it's a little bit of all those combinations.
YouTube University to the rescue.
Yeah, that's the way of putting it, yes.
Let's talk a little bit about the Great Detroit documentary. I know I got that one, I don't know, about 6-7 years ago. Yeah. What inspired you to do that film?
Let me go back to the beginning. The Foot Soldiers stage play happened. I decided that I wanted to turn it into a movie and get into that arena. Without any background, I decided that a good training ground would be to do a documentary. That led into the birth of The Great Detroit, which came out in 2014. It showed at a number of different venues around the Metro Detroit area and as far away as Toronto, Canada. It's streaming on Amazon, and it's everything positive about Detroit. I do my best to be a positive thinker, and so that's the angle that I take in my projects. And so it's everything from the Eastern Market to the riverfront to Motown to techno to the history, Black Bottom, all the museums. It's 55 people that I interviewed. It took me 3 years to do that documentary, and actually I got a plan to take it to Europe, hopefully sometime in the very near future. And so that's really the start of my my filmmaking career.
Now, the films that I've seen of yours, the documentaries, I worked in public broadcasting for many years. Any plans of taking them even outside of your current venues and platforms to perhaps PBS, which is known for documentary?
Well, yeah, that's always on the table. Would love to do that. It hasn't happened as of yet. But that's the one thing about a film. Once you have it done, the ability to sell it, and I call it that, is always on the table, and it's not outdated. That documentary is not. The Business in the Black. We got some showings in stills now that the pandemic is over. That's been scheduled. And the next film that I intend to release is not a documentary, my first feature length called Foot Soldiers, based on the play. I've adapted it to the big screen. Hopefully that will be out before the end of 2023. That's a pretty huge undertaking, very costly. And so you have to, prepare yourself in a lot of ways to do that. But yeah, all the other options are on the table, and it's opportunities like what you present to me today for the exposure that will help move that along. And so I want to say right now, I thank you for this.
Well, we thank you for sharing some time with us. Let's just go back a little bit to, I really appreciate how you have focused your verbiage. If you like Black history, if you like stage plays, if you like being inspired, if you like learning something new, you need to attend the performance. Tell everybody again the next date and location and how they can get tickets.
Right. Thanks again. It's called They Did It. It's June 3rd at the Detroit Public Theater, which is 3960 3rd Avenue at Selden. It's in the Wayne State area. Tickets are available on Eventbrite and on the website too, businessintheblack.net. But let me also include that I have a number of other events that I'm doing within the very next few months. May 13th, many people don't know that there is a museum at the former WGPR studios on East Jefferson. And as a result of that, I'm inviting people to join me May 3rd from 2 to 4. It's free to get in, and let's tour the studios together. On July 30th, I have written another play titled The Day Slaves Had Fun. And so we're going to perform that outside in a park. It's called the Ethelja May Williams Park, which is in the Brightmoor area. It's a free performance because I want people to hear what slaves did on that one day, usually one day, which was a Sunday, that they were able to rest and recuperate. And we're going to showcase what that looked like and have some twists and turns in it, so on and so forth. That's July 30th. I think showtime is at 7 p.m. Let the sun go down and cool off a little bit. Then there are other things happening. The play They Did It will return in the fall. I'm scheduling showings or performances in other cities throughout the state and maybe in a couple other states throughout the country. So yeah, go to businessintheblack.net for a list of all the activities that I'm doing. And but right in particular, June 3rd, which is a Saturday, the first Saturday of June at Detroit Public Theater. It's 2 shows. It's at 2 p.m. and 7 p.m. Tickets on Eventbrite. Please get your tickets in advance because this is going to sell out.
And let's go back to the WGPR Museum. Everyone may or may not know that WGPR was the first Black-owned radio station on the FM dial in Michigan. And where is WGPR's place in history across the U.S.? Was it the first Black-owned radio station in the country on the FM dial?
No, it wasn't. I don't know about that part, but it was the first Black-owned TV station.
Yes.
It was the first Black-owned TV station in the country.
In the country.
In the country. And the TV sold probably in the mid-90s or something, or mid-80s. The building is still open as a operative of the radio station that is on the air now. I can't recall the dial numbers. And then in 2017, they decided to turn the studios and put exhibits up of the people who had come through the air on Anchor or otherwise. And so now it's called the William V. Banks Broadcast Museum. And so you get a chance to see where the Sting, the dance show was happening.
The scene.
The scene. Yeah, the scene. I'm telling my age. Yeah, where the scene was telecast, and you get to see where they did the broadcast from the news reports and so on and so forth. And fabulous exhibits of all the people who had come through there. And many of them are noted in the entertainment industry still today. And so that's May 13th, 2 to 4 p.m. Come on out, everybody.
And we know the scene. I was never on the scene. My brother was on the scene.
Is that right? Yeah, I must admit, I didn't make it either, even though I like to dance.
Detroit's version of Soul Train.
Exactly.
With so many people who went on to other things. And WGPR, the radio and TV station, another cast technician, Sean Robinson, got her start there in broadcasting. And you know that she's gone on to Entertainment Tonight, Entertainment Television, and produced some other movies for the Lifetime Network, I believe it is. Yeah. So it has its place in history, and I'm glad that you're doing that.
Let me stop you right there. One of the other people that have come through there, a couple others, is Ed Gordon.
Absolutely.
Ed Gordon was there, and also, I'm drawing a blank. The guy who owns he's a billionaire now. He owns all the TV shows, the court show. Byron Allen. Byron Allen. Yeah, Byron Allen came through WGPR. That's correct.
Billionaires came through WGPR right here in Detroit. So it really has its place in history, and I'm glad that you're promoting and doing that. So, well, we have had a wonderful time with Anthony Brogdan, Strong Productions. Check him out. Check out his plays. I'm going to come and definitely check out the performance in the park. It's kind of like Shakespeare in the park. That sounds like a lot of fun. Yeah, definitely.
Please do that. And we're going to be a bonfire, and it's going to give you the feel of what slaves felt like on the plantation when they were able to, gather and cook and so on and so forth. And there's a little twist to it at the end.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll be looking forward to that. Thanks again, Anthony Brogdan, filmmaker and author. Thanks for stopping by. Stay tuned. We'll be back after these messages.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
These my dads make it hurt.
Today, we bring you the first part of our global broadcast exclusive conversation.
The streets of Tahrir have once again been filled.
Key issues here at the United Nations Climate Change Conference remain unresolved.
Police are saying the protesters to move further and further away.
I'm Amy Goodman.
And I'm Juan Gonzalez.
And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!
Be sure to click subscribe and check out all our channels along with the award-winning Democracy Now!, all available 24/7. I'm Janice Hazel, and we'll see you next time on Urban Interest.